How's it going, guys? It's Mr. Lo4f, and today I got another. Well, it's one of the contracts, so it's in the stage 2 section of the contracts, called Wise Old Bird, for no apparent reason I can think of. Yeah, stage 2, so it's kind of in 2 parts as well. So the first bit I'm going to kind of drive around to the bottom of the island, and then there's a Hummer there, and I've got to tow it to there, which is like a refueling and a service area. And then there is a second part where I've got to go and grab the TUZ. I've just done a dot to it to show you on the map where it is, but I'll kind of draw it properly once I've got the first stage done. And yeah, you don't have to take the TUZ all the way back down to there. There's like a second... well, I believe it's... Oh no, it might not even be a service area at first. There's another mission on the map you have to do to turn that into a like refueling area, so I believe I've already done that on this playthrough. Hence why, yeah, once I get there I can get fuel. Probably, I suppose it depends really what vehicle you take, but could possibly be worth making sure you get that mission done first. Unless it's, I can't remember if it was one of the stage 1 contracts. In that case, like, you'd kind of get it done regardless, like before you can get to the stage 2, because I can't do any of the stage 3 missions until I've done stage 2 and so on, so it's pretty linear in that sense. It's not the end of the world. The only thing is odd about this map and season, obviously it's like lack of content really, but considering the contracts are so linear, you're not really building towards a lot. There's that weird odd mission bridge deconstruction where you literally deconstruct a bridge instead of building it. God knows why they did that. It doesn't really make any sense. It's not really going to make any difference. You can just drive through the river next to it, or there's like a little path going around to, well, left or right depending which direction you're approaching from. And yeah, it just seems a bit odd, but you got like the racetrack on here. Even if they didn't do an animation, they could have done, you know, maybe like work towards building a racetrack, or I don't know. Again, it's not the end of the world as far as these missions go. They're, for the most part, pretty just inconsequential and, you know, just an excuse to go driving across the map, which I certainly wish there was more content for this season. But yeah, one of the ways I've said before, like, all they need to do is add inconsequential missions, just say take this from here to there and blah blah blah, or as not only I've said but plenty of people have said as well, if they had some kind of mission creator thing you could go into, so if you could, like, you know, just go to a building on the map and then you get to set your own missions where you can choose like what cargo and then what location you want it to start at, or well, obviously you can't choose where the cargo starts, but you know, choose where you want to start from or whatever, and then where you got to deliver the cargo to and all sorts, and then just give us a price. Like, it couldn't be that hard to just make especially if it's like a pretty generic set of rules. You know, there's only so many places on the map you can get stuff from. There's only so many places you can drop them off to. They don't have to make it like an all-out mission creator where you can go absolutely anywhere, but yeah, they could kind of keep it within a predefined set of like destinations on the map, and it should be pretty simple. Saying that, I wouldn't even know how to code the letter 1 onto the screen, but apart from that, I'm also not paid to code the letter 1 onto the screen, so kind of balances out. Yeah, for this mission, by the way, brought the Paystar. There was, yeah, I'll say no reason in particular. Somebody was asking in the comments the other day saying why don't I use this like articulated flatbed. I can't remember what it's actually called. And to be fair, yeah, I was kind of like, well, I agree with them. I don't really use it a hell of a lot. As I drove it tonight, not hating on it or anything like that, it was sort of interesting to take it out for a change. But yeah, I kind of, in the scheme of things, I'd still rather a sideboard and all the rest of it. Obviously you've got a ramp on this, so you can drive vehicles onto the back of it, which is nice in its own right. I will say though, all in all, this is a pretty bad pairing, because as I'm going through the vehicles, obviously preferably I want to try mix and match some vehicles as I go along. I don't just want to keep using like the Zix and the Dolphin for everything. I'd happily do that, but obviously for the sakes of the videos I'd like to mix it up a little bit more. Just quickly there, I obviously had the loaf packed on an angle because he's a goddamn professional. He does what he likes. But yeah, the game just like auto unpacked as I was going up that hill, so I just put the loaf back on, but I didn't put him up that little ledge. It doesn't even really matter because I've got enough room to do what I want to do, but I was just, I don't know, stubbornness and principle. I was like, oh, I'll just pop them up on that little ledge. I was more interested to see if it'd let me pack. But yeah, anyway, like I was going through the different vehicles to you just see what I was going to use, and then obviously I wanted to also use this flatbed thing going on, and yeah, that like, well, the Zix couldn't have it, the Club couldn't have it, the Dan couldn't have it. I think there was one or two other vehicles that I checked that couldn't have it, and yeah, eventually I just got to the Paystar, it could have it, and I've not driven the Paystar in a little while. So yeah, I thought I'd give it a go. And the main thing really with the Paystar, like, where it's not the best match for this map really, is it's a pretty long narrow truck, and this map particularly sort of makes your trucks like, you know, a bit boaty, you're always tipping left or right. And yeah, so a truck that sits a lot more stable, like the Zix, well, most trucks to be honest, because like I said, this thing's just, considering how long it is as well, that's what she said, yeah, it's yeah, just sits pretty narrow, and especially with this flatbed thing on it as well, the, I don't know what it's called, particularly with like the rear ramp up like it is now, I think that adds quite a lot of weight that makes you boat around a bit as well. I kind of figured out later on in this video, in the end I kind of left the ramp, well, at one point I did it completely flat, so it just made like the actual, you know, say where the loaf sat, like the whole platform was just like a longer platform. In the end though, because that now creates like a pretty large overhang over the rear wheels, you're probably best leaving a little bit of an angle on it, but essentially you kind of want to get it as flat and level as possible, because yeah, you can see now as I'm boating around left to right, I don't really think it was the loaf as much as it was like this, yeah, I've called these like a beaver tail or something, I think they call that over here. Don't know if that's like an official name, but yeah, I'm sure I've heard of beaver tails, that's just what they call trucks that do that. As well, you can see in the bottom right hand corner, I've actually got a off-road gearbox for this one. I just kind of figured, because of the mud and all the rest of it, I just haven't really used an off-road gearbox for a while, and I thought I'd give it a go. Obviously in high range, you can get into high range a lot easier because it's just a lower ratio, so you don't have to go as fast before it'll let you get in it. And the other thing I just thought is I'll have high-low and everything as well with the diffs on and stuff. Yeah, I will say this Paystar's pretty lenient as far as it goes. If you're in the high range gearbox and putting it into high gear, you don't really need to be going that fast or anything, so yeah, like, I'm not knocking it or whatever. What I kept finding though, every time I was in high gear, it just, because I'm so used to the high gear in the high range gearbox, it just felt like I was being purposely slowed down in this gear, or as if it was like wheel spinning loads, which it wasn't really. But yeah, it's just obviously the nature of the off-road gearbox makes everything a little bit slower. See, now in reverse, it's like normally it's quicker in the high range gearbox. So behind me though is the yeah, the Hummer, first thing I've got to grab. I don't believe you even have to search this map for the Hummer as such. I think once you select this contract, it highlights the vehicles anyway. It's not highlighting the other vehicle at the minute, is it TUZ166? I can't even remember properly what it's called, because you can see in the top right corner it's only got the Hummer displayed at the minute. It basically makes you do them in order, so in theory you could go and grab, yeah, well, there wouldn't really be any point. I was going to say you could grab the TUZ, but you have to take it to a different like fueling station or whatever anyway, so yeah, you may as well just do it in the order it says on here. By the way, I just edited a bit out there because I couldn't remember, well, in fact no, I couldn't remember what buttons to press to operate the beaver tail thing, but the game's full of shit. It says press L1 and then press like left and right and up and down on the D-pad. It isn't that. I was holding down L2, no, L1 to enter like the buttons to be able to move the thing, and then hold L2 to lower it and R2 to raise it or something, and then it's like left on the left analog stick to extend the tail. Yeah, once you know what it is, it's fine, but the game literally tells you the wrong buttons. You can see it there in the bottom corner now. It says up, down and all that on the D-pad. These are lies, I'm telling you. Yeah, it was a little bit of a pain in the ass winching the thing on it. It just, I'm not sure if when I was winching to the Hummer it was automatically doing the thing where like it makes the vehicle steer because you're winching it backwards and whatnot. So in theory, like I did look, you can fit a crane on. I could have a crane as well as this. I didn't really want it though because I thought on top of everything else that's going to sit a little bit higher. That's going to make this thing even more boaty and kind of weigh it down a little bit and all the rest of it. So I was just hoping that between the winches, yeah, I'd be able to drag the Hummer onto here. Which, yeah, a couple of attempts that it just kept slipping off to the side a bit, but it wasn't the end of the world. I'd still rather do that than have the crane, I reckon, in the long run. And this whole platform, though, considering it's on the, you know, like you can get a 3-slot version of the sideboard and the flatbed on, like Bruce, and this as well, actually, funnily enough. It'd be quite cool if, like, yeah, if this was a bit longer. Yeah, that's what she said. That's what I said. Well, see, I wish it was a bit longer. I wish both my legs were a bit longer. And then my cock had finally stopped dragging on the floor all the time, but it is what it is. First world problems and all that. Oh yeah, when you get to here as well, you're best off cutting to the left to get back to the road. This time I went through here, actually got through with no issues at all. I did get a bit of a trollish smack and blow a tyre out. I still don't like that. You know when you're driving and it moans about you're in high-low with the diffs? Yeah, it's just like, it's such a punishment that non-permanent diff trucks get. Yeah, when I got out of there, I thought that was a bit harsh, but again, it shows you how bad the tipping is, because I sort of hadn't tipped, but it, once you go in a bit, this truck doesn't try and fight to get back. Imagine it like just a complete rectangle that's equally weighted, and as you tip it over to the side, there's nothing, like, it has no desire to be on its wheels more than its side or vice versa. So I did the quit and reload method. One reason I like the quit and reload method is because I get to try, when I get to a certain area and have something that, yeah, makes my truck tip, etc., I essentially get a chance to go 30 seconds back and try it again. So it's not always about necessarily it being quicker, but yeah, well, there you go. I did the quit and reload again because I did tip that second time. Obviously you can see the path it wants me to take, but it's over all those rocks. If you just cut off to the left here, it's a hell of a lot easier. Well, I'd even say, obviously knowing what I know now, on the way as well, just cut all them rocks out. See, again, the diffs are moaning. Which at that second there, when I'm going down that dip and up the other side, I'm in the middle of making the diffs go from like high-low back to auto. That could have been the 1 second you take your attention off the truck and then you hit a funny bounce and you tip over and stuff. Just, yeah, I don't know why they're so heavily punished, the non-diff stuff. I'm sure that was a feature in MudRun as well, and I remember I never liked it back in that either. You see now, as I was flying down the hill, I just slammed on in the end. I didn't want to risk swerving because I was kind of stuck in the ruts in the road, and yeah, if I'd swerved, I'm pretty guaranteed I would have started flopping over. You can see now though the platform at the back, I've packed the Hummer and everything. I can't really lift the platform much more than it is, but that's fine, that kind of suits the situation anyway. Because as I said, if I raise the platform all the way up, it just basically makes you more top heavy. There's no gain to doing so. And then having a little angle on it like it is now, even if you're sort of going up a hill and the back end's scraping down, yeah, it doesn't really block you or do anything. So you can see quite a lot though as I'm driving. I'm trying like just to avoid those ruts in the road, because especially if this thing does sit so narrowly, if that's even a word, it kind of is always trying to slide slightly left or right, go into those ruts, which automatically makes the other side of the wheels go up, and then yeah, it kind of just really encourages you to tip basically. Something like the Zix sits wide enough, it probably sits slightly wider than those tracks, so it's always trying to prop up each side, whereas this is always trying to make one side sit high and one side sit low. And then you get to situations like now. This is another thing with this flatbed. I don't even really know, strictly speaking, how they could get around it unless you have a crane, but even then, the crane's not going to really solve the situation. yeah, it just so happens I now need to get this Hummer off, and like when I drove through the square, it didn't just make it vanish. Which, ironically, most of the time I prefer it when it leaves the vehicle. This is probably one of the few times where it actually would have been quite convenient if it didn't. Thankfully, it was so near the edge. See again, Lo4f got done professional. He knows his distances. He knew that if he sat there, the Hummer would be back far enough that I could just flap the beaver tail thing around, and yeah, the Hummer kind of fell off by itself, which was pretty nice. And then yeah, from this fueling station, got to go up to get the TUZ, and then fortunately, yeah, not all the way back down to here. And then you'll see at this point, so just where you drop that off, that's service square you kind of drive through anyway, but there's a fueling thing there, so I get juiced up. Is it now? Yeah, as I'm going around this corner, I'm sure. I don't even tip, and the weird thing is the vehicle wasn't even really tipping, but it auto unpacked the Lo4f. Lo4f's goddamn horse, so he flipped back to his wheels. But then what I did instead, just because, to be honest, I was kind of curious. You can see now in the bottom right, I've changed back to the high range gearbox. So obviously I edited it, but I just recovered to the garage, yeah, switched to that gearbox, and then drove back here. Just because I was, not only was I missing the high range gear, but I was just curious to see overall, is it worth it? How easy is it to get into high range? Or, you know, now I've got the better high range, am I ever even going to get to use it? You can see there again, pretty tippy. You can see again the Lo4f's goddamn horse of a vehicle. Another issue when I was trying to tip this thing, particularly with the beaver tail thing like the angle it was more difficult to try and tip this, but then dragging it this way it was digging in. I think it's one of them where it kind of digs into the map a bit. I remember the Paystar can be a little bit iffy because it's got the exhaust as well that can sometimes dig in. No issue for the older, the goddamn horse. I mean, yeah, this is only about the 4,000th time I've ever rescued a vehicle with the Lo4f, so I certainly wasn't worrying about this thing. This is breakfast levels of flipping. It's when you start to have to flip stuff like the P16 or the Zix, and your arse over tit on the side of a mountain with no trees nearby. That's when it's like, this one's going to be interesting. But I've had it before. The Lo4f flipped a Colob that was over 90 degrees tipped with an 8-slot trailer, and he even poked some of the metal beams back onto the trailer, so he is pretty much unstoppable. Yeah, you can see now at the minute I've got the beaver tail thing kind of fully flush with the truck, which, like I said, yeah, I'd up it a little bit. But you can see now, though, in high gear, this truck's lenient enough. It certainly doesn't feel like it's a complete troll as far as trying to get into high. It's got quite a nice power. I'm sure, I know it's the Westline engine in this. I can't remember off the top of my head if it is the same as the twin steer. I should imagine it probably is, because they're similar sized vehicles and that as well, but I won't, yeah, I wouldn't bet a Lo4f on it just in case. It might be like the one from the top engine in the twin steer or something. But yeah, power wise it feels like enough. I'm always going to want like a little bit more power, because they tend to err on the side of nerfed trucks on this game. I'm pretty convinced there's somebody who works at the SnowRunner thing who really doesn't like the high gear or anything. Like, they hate that that's even in the game. So even through sections like that, even though it's boggy and it slows it down, I will say as well, because I always mention, like, I prefer chain tyres for quite a lot of reasons. And yeah, there's many reasons I think they're better. I've had the conversation loads with people. Someone was saying it the other day, and I kind of said the same thing, that yeah, mud tyres are, I've noticed that they're a couple of mile an hour faster on snow, pure snow sections, and that doesn't include super snow and death snow, but I haven't really noticed any difference with mud. But anyway, the majority of when you're driving along in this game, you're going along dirt roads or the grass if I'm going off-road. If you actually equate the amount of pure mud you drive over in this game, like actual where it's coded as mud and all the rest of it, it isn't a whole lot. It probably makes up 5-10% max of you driving. But anyway, another thing I was going to say, just while I remembered, because I don't usually drive that many American vehicles, not on purpose, but they tend to be not as good. But one of the reasons they're kind of not as good is you don't get muds as an option on any of the American vehicles. But I just wanted to mention that obviously you can put chained on the American vehicles, and certain American vehicles get a mud version of the chained, and this being one of them. So even though I can't put muds on, I mean, that just shows you how stupid it is. One, why on earth you're not allowed to put muds on the American trucks is stupid, but it's even more stupid when you think that the chained are actually muds. So all you'd have to do is remove the chains, and then you'd have muds. But regardless, I'm just saying, like, the tyres I've got on at the minute are chained version of muds, and that's the only way I can get muds on this American. I won't say all American vehicles, because I know there is a couple of exceptions. I believe the twin steer is another one that I think, if I'm not mistaken, you can have the muds on the twin steer. Even like, yeah, you don't have to have chain, but again, I like putting the chain on. So there's certain bits there where like the back of that beaver tail thing sort of bottoms out a little bit. But you can see as well, once I went back to the garage to change to the high gear, I also just loaded the Lo4f on normally, because my idea at this point, I was originally going to do this, is go and collect both vehicles and pack all three on this beaver tail thing, but then obviously you have to deliver them both to different places and they're in stages, so I kind of scrapped that idea. But you can see with this beaver tail extended just flush, I could easily fit another vehicle on there, even with the Lo4f lengthways as well. So yeah, it's not really an issue. Again, with this vehicle, you can sort of see from how the tyres sit on this, my vehicle width is barely that of the Lo4f, but obviously the Lo4f is a lot more like compact weight-wise and all the rest of it. Custom muds would go nice on this vehicle, just purely for anything. I prefer the chained over the custom muds grip-wise, but yeah, for how wide they'd sit. You see, I almost was going there, and it's not like the vehicle tried to fight it or anything. It was only because I flung out a winch that it, yeah. And it's, the funny thing, as soon as I flung out a winch, I don't even think I had time to hoover it in. It was like the truck gave up on trying to tip and was just like, oh, alright then, you got me. And then it just was fine. So, yeah. Genius plan, of course. When I got to here, just for, I was kind of like, why not? Obviously, the last little section you go to get the TUZ166, as you can see, it's a tiny little tight winding path. I'm sure it's certainly possible with the Paystar, but just the fact that it's a big long vehicle and all the rest of it, I figured, yeah, the Lo4f, he is a hauling machine, so I'll send him in. You can navigate all the little paths. You see, this little patch there, though, that mud, scouts are so punished on this game that even when they release stuff like those Land Rovers and that, there just isn't, there's no gain really to be had. Like, obviously when I take the Lo4f, I always jump on a truck, and it's always like Dolphin and Lo4f or something. Lo4f's perfect for like zipping on these little bits like this, but yeah, I wouldn't, well, I don't know, actually, I do travel from one end of the map to the other. It depends on the map as well. Obviously the icy maps, the Lo4f can fly down the roads pretty quick, even doing the, yeah, the rally stage 2 from like one end of Northport to the other. The Lo4f was only like 10 seconds slower than the Taiga, and that was old school beast mode Taiga. The Lo4f might even eat it for breakfast these days, because the Taiga feels gutless by comparison. I will say, I know this is excuses, but it is true. By this point, the cat was on my chair, so I have to recline it, because he sits on the bit that flops out. The sun was rising bright as fuck, and I could not see anything at this point. In fact, I've had a headache for about the last hour, just from, not now, but in about a minute or two from the footage now, I was, yeah, leaning back on the chair, leaning heavily over to the right to try and line the sun up with my window frame, just so it wasn't blinding me so I could see the TV. But if I move, the cat would get up, and then he'll start meowing while I'm trying to record. So it's one of them where you just got to sit there and wait it out. Yeah, here on the way back, the only reason I was saying that is I could not see what the fuck I was doing now. Like, I could see my own reflection and everything on the TV. And yeah, I couldn't tell if I was putting the winch on the vehicle, hence you can hear loads of like cancel and redoing it and all sorts. But again, you can see that little patch of mud is just sort of, yeah, overly punishes scouts. And my solution's twofold with a Lo4f. One, you just fire a winch out in front of you. There's 98% of the time there's something the Lo4f can reach, because it's got some He's got some good old length. That's what she said, of course. And the other thing is he's a nimble little beast. He can just go around most patches of mud. But it's just the point of it. Like, you see here, he's fine in this bit of mud, but as soon as it becomes officially coded as, like, anti-scout mud, then that's it. Time to fire winches out. So, yeah, pretty happy with the plan. Lo4f, goddamn horse. Got the job done. Thankfully, when I disconnect the winch there, it didn't make the TUZ roll off. But yeah, I certainly think that was a lot quicker, better, more fun, less stressful than trying to get this Paystar up that little narrow winding path, and then to turn the Paystar around near to where I got the TUZ. You'd seen the Lo4f tipped. I honestly think, I don't know if it's specifically the Lo4f, but I landed on my front the other day and it didn't tip back to its wheels as quick as it used to. So they've either fiddled a bit with the Lo4f, which, I mean, how dare they molest the Lo4f, or there's something with this map, and I know that sounds silly, but the only thing is when I was driving the iceberg the other day in the live stream, I've drove the iceberg loads. I'd say it's my favourite mod. I've driven that truck alone for hundreds of hours, and at one point it just felt like it was tipping all the time, as if like the usual way that iceberg stays very planted was just completely it was weird. I don't really, like I say, it was happening during the live stream, and then at first I was sort of thinking, oh, it must just be my driving, and then I don't know, it was as if, yeah, like the characteristics just switched on it and it suddenly was having none of it. And yeah, I've got my suspicions if there's a summer. Can anyone hear that noise? Earlier on, there's people talking and stuff on here. I'm sure there was someone whistling, and even my cat was looking around like, what the, who's whistling? This game has a habit of, like, they record noises, but it's like they record them outside the room, so everything sounds as if it happened behind you or outside or, yeah, in the next room. Nothing ever sounds clear like it's coming from the TV, and it catches me out loads. Yeah, I was just gonna say, I'm sure at some point I took a nice fat bit of damage. Still a little bit trollish that. Obviously, if you got the high range gearbox and you put it in high gear, you're theoretically more likely to pick up damage because you'll be going at a quicker pace, but it's certainly a lenient enough truck that you can feather the throttle a bit, and you don't have to go flat out in high gear, but it's nice that the option's there, particularly like there when you just want to... The game's always trying to make you go back into first in auto, and that's what I kind of didn't like about the off-road gearbox more than the high gear, was it only had 4 auto gears, but it was just constantly trying to jump back down to first because it never had enough momentum to want to stay out of third, or at least stay in, say, third or fourth. You can just see that red car, I crashed into 2 cars, one of them just sank through the floor. It doesn't really mean anything, just thought I'd mention it. Kind of smashed the truck up just as I got here at the last minute. I can't remember if any section here is a service thing, to be honest. But as the fuel tank was pissing fuel out, I just kind of figured. I mean, there's a goddamn horse, that's the reason I do bring the Lo4f with me, amongst other things. Yeah, smash the truck up. Fuel's leaking out, but I was able to fix it with the Lo4f, so now in theory, if I wanted to carry on driving around, then I could. Yeah, job done. Get that TUZ off there. Lo4f knows what he's doing. So get out of it, TUZ. This is my beaver tail. If you can hear banging in the background, it's my cat. Does anyone else's cat? He goes for a piss in the litter tray, and then, if you're lucky, he'll do one little scratch to bury it, and then he'll do about another 8,400 scratches on the radiator, the wall, everything except. Like, he just starts, yeah, scratching everything. Goddamn animal. Yeah, that's about it for today. That's another one in the bag. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed. I hope that helps. Thanks for watching. Thanks to my Patreon members. Get yourself a Lo4f because he's a goddamn beast. This truck was alright, but yeah, like, bit of an iffy map for it. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon.